Good day, mates. My name is Mordecai, and welcome back to the show, where an aspiring roleplayer narrates various RPG-related stories as a learning tool. I am speaking through my familiar Aquata for this narration. When a dungeon master is running a game, it is a fairly common practice to incorporate a plot into the campaign to give the player characters a central motivation or goal in the world. In addition to providing characters with a potential plot, this also serves the creation of a living world where villains are acting out plans for their own ends. These plot hooks often serve as the basis for furthering the campaign, and keeping players invested in the world building. However, a common trap with regards to setting up plot hooks for the players to explore is referred to as the railroad. The railroad is a term used to refer to when a game master wants to unwaveringly convey their specific plot and story at the cost of player agency and potential interest. And sometimes this railroad is in service of a dreaded Dungeon Master Mary Sue. So just how badly does the game suffer in today's narrative when the players are forced along a predetermined path on a rail? Let's find out as we embark on another delve. Before we begin with today's story, if you like my content and want to see more, feel free to subscribe and like the video. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Plus, you can always change your mind at a later date. Additionally, considering the nature of the content in the story for this video, I have to provide a trigger warning for dark themes involving body horror. Here's a timestamp to skip forward to if you want to have my thoughts on the story without the potentially triggering content. You have been warned. Let's delve into the often terrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Today's narrative is titled DM Literally Railroads Us, forces single player into an encounter with a boss and forces DMPC, and is written by user BeneficialBend9857. Hi, I don't really post much on here, but I figured I'd share this story. The DM and I are still friends, and he actually still plays in one of my campaigns. And there weren't any out-of-game consequences, so I feel comfortable sharing this. Anyway, onto the story. I apologize in advance for my bad grammar and spelling, as English is not my first language. The background for the story is as follows. I, a guy of 18 years of age, had been playing with the same group of people on an online D&D server for a while. After the previous Dungeon Master of our campaign had burnt out, another player, another guy of 18 years of age, decided to run his own campaign. It was set up as a high fantasy, high magic setting with some cool technology and an actually interesting plot hook. Many people in the world were being marked by some otherworldly force, and the party had met up and decided to travel with the Adventuring Guild to get money and to figure out what the marks were. My character was an amnesiac, a zombie doctor who was trying to find her father and figure out her past. She had joined the party to get some money and find some answers. The party consisted of my undead fighter, the satyr bard, the genie patron warlock, the demonic sorcerer, and the former DM's character, being a ranger paladin who specialized in hunting fae and undead, which became a bit of a problem later on. The second session featured half of the party getting their characters swapped out. With the first session, the red flags started when the party met in the town square. The town square itself was attacked by a swarm of giant bugs, each of which were poisonous. You had to roll a constitution save every time they attacked you, and if you failed one, you were poisoned and could not roll additional saves. Additionally, even when the bard tried to heal my character, the poison still left swollen pustules all over my face that I could not get rid of, and I had to wait out. We were later in the session aboard a train heading elsewhere, when it got attacked by more of these bugs, and just when my character's skin was beginning to clear a bit, I failed in another con save, and was stuck like that for another few in-game days. To make matters worse, when the party met up with the Paladin Ranger, he immediately tried to kill my character, who was a low constitution, dexterity focused fighter, and had already taken most of the damage in the previous encounters. It is worth mentioning that whilst my character was an undead, they passed as a human, and the only things that distinguished her from a living person was not having a heartbeat or needing to eat or drink. But the Paladin didn't use any abilities, just saw her and attacked. I honestly thought that he should have at least had to have rolled something. I didn't know much about Paladins as I'd never played any, and if I'm wrong about this, I am genuinely sorry. Needless to say, I was likely going to die a second time that session. Luckily, the session did end because the DM had some of the staff on the train subdue the Ranger Paladin, but this resulted in our entire party getting banned from using the train. In our second session, the Bard and the Paladin both had made new characters, with the Bard becoming a Warforged Paladin, and the Paladin becoming another Warforged Paladin. The Warlock player knew neither of the Paladins would actually be able to heal, so he asked the DM to change classes. It was a complete mess. We all settle at an inn where we meet the biggest offender, Anna Marie, the Dungeon Master Mary Sue. We met her when the party was at the bar. Our 6'3" demonic sorcerer, who got drunk off of just a sip of a super strong liquor, was completely out of it when Anna Marie shows up completely uninvited, taking the giant cup and downing it in a single swig. As she was walking off, she threw coins at us to pay for the drink when we asked her to pay for it. That night at the inn, we all paid to stay. My character wanted to get up to some friendly shenanigans, by sneaking into the cleric's room and drawing on his face as a light prank. Anna Marie somehow heard my character in another room with my 23 roll in stealth, whilst she was apparently sleeping. She wouldn't have known I was up to anything weird, as I told her that I was just looking for my room. She decided to pin my character to a wall, yelling extremely loudly, and then chucked me out a window for, apparently making noise at night. The next day, however, Anna Marie made the entire party breakfast, and it was apparently the best thing anyone in the party had ever had. She goes on and on about the people she has sworn to protect, and about how her sister Samantha just so happened to be the NPC that recruited us for the Adventurers Guild. The group wants to ditch her, but the DM lets us know that we need her cart to travel to the city. We make it halfway to the next town over. The trip felt like an excuse for the Dungeon Master to brag about how cool Anna Marie is. Like, she was so awesome and basically like a team adult, whilst we were all dumb children who make dumb decisions. Which was something that only she seemed to think. There were a few fights with even more of the bugs. As a Dungeon Master who happens to be terrible at balancing combat, I don't feel qualified to complain about the combat encounters, but they were indeed terrible. The bugs did the same annoying poison damage, except there were many of them, and there was no real way to avoid the poison. On top of this, the poison also did not seem to have any form of cure, and if you fail to save, you were basically screwed. As an important side note, this is where I messed up. I really should have communicated what my problems were, instead of being subtle and just making jokes about my problems with the campaign. I was worried I'd make the Dungeon Master mad, or that he wouldn't listen, and I definitely should have handled it maturely instead of just bringing up something in a way that sounded like a joke and then dipping. I can't get mad at someone for not picking up on it. This was definitely a situation that could have been solved easily if we just simply talked to each other better, and I really should have made an effort to. On to the third and final session, the one that provided the straw that broke the camel's back. The party made camp for the night. My character doesn't sleep, and neither do the two Warforged, so we all kind of just chatted a bit when my character notices a weird trail of fireflies. I go to investigate, telling the others that if I'm not back in a while to send help. One of the Warforged sent me with their familiar to keep an eye out. I eventually see the fireflies gathering around a figure, and I tried to eavesdrop from the cover of some bushes and trees, since we were in a heavily forested area. I am pulled into a private call with the DM. The Dungeon Master describes the figure as a general from the other world, setting out to conquer this one. Upon hearing this, I try to go and report back. But I am spotted because apparently the fireflies start sticking to me like a glowing neon sign. No, I didn't get to roll a saving throw against this. And yes, my character, who rolled a total of 29 for their stealth check, was instantly spotted. I was forced into an inescapable combat situation that I wasn't able to run away from. I tried over and over to disengage and run, but there was nowhere to run to, as the fireflies quickly blocked any and all exits. I got into a grueling encounter with the general entirely on my own. Despite playing a fighter, I was extremely squishy as I only had a 10 in my constitution score. I knew that this wasn't going to end well. I actually managed to do a hefty amount of damage to the general, but I eventually failed a poison con save and took 35 additional poison damage and fall unconscious. All of the party were telling the DM like, hey, when is the rest of the party coming? And apparently, I was somehow miles away. So by the time they got there, I'm being dragged into the air by the general as she begins to turn my unconscious character into a horrifying bug monster, against my will, without asking beforehand if I was chill with that, or even giving a good reason as to why. The party is desperately trying to get my character away, and after arguing about spell ranges for a solid 15 minutes, the cleric finally manages to actually shoot the general, and I plummet into a tree and take a hefty amount of damage. I do succeed in my various death saving throws, however, and the cleric heals me, but the poison, oh, the darned poison lingers, and not even lesser restoration can prevent me from being turned into a bug monster. So the party had to take me back to Anna Marie. Yeah, you know, that fighter who somehow has access to level 5 healing spells that our cleric doesn't even have. And yeah, the entire party wants to call BS on this, but thankfully my character is healed and poison free, with the transformation into the bug creature being reversed entirely. After my character successfully dissects the body of one of those giant bugs and getting some poison from it and one of the giant stingers, we drop the body off at the nearby city and claim our bounty. The resident big shot of the city thanks us, and asks us to look out for his daughters, and take a guess who his daughters were. If you somehow guessed Anna Marie and Samantha, congratulations. At that point, I made a mental note to kill Anna Marie if she gets forced upon us again. Not my proudest moment, but I was absolutely livid. We don't get a chance to see about that, however, because after that session, the campaign just sort of got put on hiatus. Me and the cleric were very angry, and the rest of the party were talking in the voice chat about how nonsensical the entire session was. We were all planning to leave their campaign. Afterwards, we all spoke to the Dungeon Master separately and stated our various grievances, and to his credit, he apologized and took full accountability. He is a great dude, and when he decides to Dungeon Master again, I'm sure he will learn from his past mistakes. He is thankfully a great player in my own games, and I look forward to playing with him in the future. And that's where the story ends. To his credits, for his first attempt at running a campaign, the situation could have ended up as more of a disaster than what we have seen occur here. The Dungeon Master Mary Sue that was artificially made pivotal to the overarching plot did only start making an appearance in the second session, and prior to that second session we had a party conflict started by the initial paladin metagaming and then acting on that information. For those who are unaware as to what metagaming is, it can be broadly defined as the usage of out-of-character information for the purposes of making in-character decisions. It can be considered a form of effective cheating, and the example from this story of metagaming was the paladin immediately knowing about the poster's undead doctor and acting on that information without acquiring it in character in any form, which in this case was forced player versus player antagonism leading to a fight. This did lead to some railroading and having the train staff intervene to prevent a party conflict that never should have happened, and may have been what led to the creation and usage of a Dungeon Master Mary Sue to prevent further party conflict. This then resulted in what I can only assume was intended as a light prank being thwarted before having the Mary Sue take the spotlight and be effectively akin to a main character, after throwing a party member out the window. And then you had the situation where a plot hook was dropped during an overnight camp, before a player was railroaded into an inescapable sequence where the Mary Sue got to be in the spotlight as a miracle worker. Something I want to clarify is that it is possible to have a Dungeon Master player character without them becoming a dreaded Dungeon Master Mary Sue, and examples of these more proper DMPCs include retainers for the party, NPCs that the party has invested into entirely of their own volition, and that one quest giver that the party needs to escort over to the next town because they are extremely frail and unsuitable for combat. It is when a Dungeon Master player character becomes a spotlight hog, extremely important to the overarching plot, and able to easily overwhelm the party on their own, that they turn into a dreaded Dungeon Master Mary Sue. And of course, these aren't all of the considerations, but they are the main ones for the purposes of assessing if your Dungeon Master player character is in fact a Mary Sue self-insert, or something along those lines. There are solutions and considerations for all of these issues. Having effective communication between the players and the Dungeon Master about the expectations and frustrations with the campaign would help to alleviate a lot of these issues, especially with regards to whether or not a Dungeon Master Mary Sue is welcome at the table, and the prevalence of being on a rail, and also with regards to what the players will allow in terms of dark themes, such as the horrible mutilation being turned into a giant bug monster, without permission. At the very least, everyone in this story has learned valuable considerations and lessons in hindsight that will help them out with their future campaigns, and I sincerely wish them the best of luck with doing so. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed my content and would like to see more, feel free to subscribe and give the video a like. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Plus, you can always change your mind at a later date. Thank you again for watching, and I shall see you all next time.